Hello, welcome everyone for our sixth session. First, please change your name to English full name. Yeah. Today we'll hear about Florida ecosystem. Dr. Okada will introduce our lecturer today. Please, Okada-san.
Hi, good morning and good evening, everyone. And today we invited great guest speakers from Florida, Mr. Foster Torbjornsen and Mr. Rahul Shukla. And we will have a lecture by the Mr. Torbjornsen first, and then we will have a panel discussion with Mr. Torbjornsen and Mr. Shukla. So let me introduce Mr. Torbjornsen. Mr. Torbjornsen is a retired attorney with extensive international business experience. He initially worked in Hawaii as a business and labor law attorney. Mr. Torbjornsen also worked in Kobe, Japan for 9 years in a Japanese law firm. Upon returning to the USA in 2003, Mr. Torbjornsen started his own international business consulting firm. So currently, Mr. Torbjornsen resides in Florida, where he's implementing his career opportunities. So please welcome Mr. Torbjornsen.
Thank you, Okada-san. おはようございます、皆様。本日はご招待いただきありがとうございます。ここに来られて光栄です。I'm almost done. I'm almost done. 日本語が苦手でごめんなさい。だから今から私は英語で。Okay. So, yes, I'm going to be speaking English for the rest of the presentation. And we are going to have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation at around 8 o'clock. Mr. Shukla, one of the panelists, will join us at that time. So I'm going to share the screen now with a PowerPoint presentation I've done. And how can I, there it is. Can you all see that?
Not yet.
Okay, how's that?
Yes, yes.
Good. Okay, so today we are going to discuss the entrepreneurism in Florida, the entrepreneurism ecosystem down here in Florida, and tell you about Florida first in case you don't know where it is. It is in the southeastern corner of the United States, right down here, between the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. It is one of the largest and most international of US states. The size is, it's about 2.5 times bigger than the Chubu region of Japan. Honshu is about a little bit more than twice the size of Florida. Florida has about 21.6 million people. It is the third most populated state in the United States, and it's close to Chubu's population of 23 million. Florida is projected to grow to 26 million people by 2030. It is one of the fastest growing states in America. The population has the highest percentage of people age 65 and above. 19% of everyone here in Florida is 65 and above. I'm close to that age, but not there yet, thankfully. Japan is 28%. The median age here in Florida is 42 compared to 38 for Japan, and 38 for the US and 48 for Japan. Before I continue, is the interpreter okay? Are you able to handle my speech? Should I slow down? You're fine. Okay, I'll do a little slow. Okay, as I mentioned, Florida is one of the fastest growing states. There are about 1,000 people moving to Florida every day. And a lot of them are coming from traditional, more famous technology hubs like New York and San Francisco. Miami and Tampa the two biggest cities in Florida. They're the top locations for new arrivals, new entrepreneurs, new businesses. Surprisingly, the movement of people into Florida has not really slowed down during the COVID pandemic. It is continuing steadily. Although Florida's tourism business has slowed down quite a bit. Normally, Florida gets about 125 million visitors every year. So here's just some maps to give you an idea. This is the outline of Florida compared to Honshu and the Chubu Nagoya area. And the other map on the right just gives you, the red areas are where the major cities are located. I'm located right about here in the second largest area. Okay. So Florida's three largest metropolitan areas are Miami, with about 6.2 million people. Miami right now, as I will explain later, is one of the most active venture capital places in America right now. Tampa is the second largest with 3.1 million people. This is where I live. Orlando, you all know Orlando, that's where Disney World is. It has 2.5 million people. And Jacksonville, Florida has 1.5. So compared to Nagoya, Nagoya has 10.2 million people. Cities here are a lot smaller. So some interesting facts and figures about Florida. The gross domestic product is 1.15 trillion US dollars. It's about 50% higher than the GDP of Chubu, which is 0.8 trillion. Florida has the fourth largest state economy in the USA and the 17th largest economy in the world. It's pretty much the same as Indonesia. Florida has a larger GDP than Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, and Argentina. It's one of the fastest growing states, as I mentioned. GDP growth before COVID averaged about 3.5% a year, compared to 2.8% for the US as a whole. The economy has gone down in 2020 due to COVID, but it is projected to bounce back in 2022 by 3 to 4%. One of the main engines of growth in Florida is its small businesses, basically any company with 100 or less employees. There are 2.7 million small businesses in Florida. They employ 42% of the workforce, almost half, but they create 75% of the new jobs, and they generate almost half of Florida's GDP, 44%. What are some of the trends, the investment trends, the economic trends we are seeing in Florida right now? Well, Florida entrepreneurs in Florida are very busy. They created more than 6,400 new companies in 2019, and they created over 250,000 jobs, new jobs in 2018. Florida, it leads all other US states in the number of new business applications and has the highest rate of new entrepreneurs among all states, at least the last survey taken in 2019. Another good thing about entrepreneurism in Florida is that startups have an early survival rate of nearly 80%, but that means that they are still existing after 1 year, 1 year after being formed. A lot of startups don't even make it to their first year. Florida has almost an 80% survival rate. What is the economy like here? Well, tourism is the biggest industry in Florida. Anything related to tourism, hotels, amusement parks, that sort of thing, accounts for about 11% of the economy here in Florida. This industry was the one that was most affected by COVID. It was down almost 40%. Tourists were down almost 40% in 2020. It is starting to improve, and it is expected to fully recover by 2023. The biggest The biggest job sectors, industrial sectors in Florida are, in addition to tourism, the biggest areas where it's expected to grow are for financial services, banking and investments and insurance, educational services for universities and private schools and high schools, healthcare services. Again, we have Florida's a large elderly population to thank for that. International trade. International trade is very big in Florida, considering its location and the number of seaports it has. Transportation is expected to grow quite a bit, as are utilities and professional services such as lawyers, accountants, doctors, those sort of professionals, and business services, as well as construction of new homes and new commercial facilities. So continuing, what are the trends we are seeing for new investment and entrepreneurial activity in Florida? Florida, and especially Miami, is one of the three hottest trending spots in the USA right now for new engineers and college graduates to start their new technology careers. The COVID pandemic and the rise of working remotely from home is diversifying and spreading out technology workers in the USA. There is a net migration of technology workers away from traditional technology and high tax places like San Francisco, New York, Seattle, and Boston, and a lot of them are coming to Florida. In fact, one survey said nearly half of the US technology workers have moved during the COVID pandemic. These consist of mostly younger, non-management technology workers who are looking for a more affordable place, someplace that gives them a little bit more living space and a better climate. As I mentioned, nearly 1,000 people move to Florida each day, and they bring with them, every day they bring with them about $29 million worth of assets and what they call net income migration coming into Florida every day. So continuing on with the new business investment trends, Miami, Tampa, and Jacksonville are among the top 10 US cities where people in America are moving into. Miami, in particular, is trying to set itself up as a second Wall Street. They're trying to get a lot of Wall Street companies in New York to move down here to Florida, and they're having some success with that. The entrepreneurial sectors in Florida that grew during the COVID pandemic include artificial intelligence, modulation and simulation technology, transportation, and advanced manufacturing like telecommunications and aeronautical products. Overall, despite the COVID pandemic, Florida small business investors and entrepreneurs, they are more optimistic and they plan on growing more and hiring more people in 2022 than most other states in the US. So some of the recent businesses that have come to Florida, recent business startups, moves, and expansions include Amazon, Blockchain, Oracle, Deloitte, StemTech, a biotech company that does stem cell research, Civics, International Data, Nucleus Research, and Shift Pixie, an online company. I mentioned before that Miami is trying to position itself as a new Wall Street, as a Wall Street South in the US. So there is a migration from Wall Street in New York to Florida, with a lot of major investment firms, hedge funds, and venture capitalists recently moving to Florida. These include Goldman Sachs, the Blackstone Group, ICANN Enterprises, Carl Icahnn's company, Citadel, Virtu Financial, Palm Drive, and a lot more. So some charts to just show you these trends about how Florida's economy keeps growing. You see the dip here in 2020, in the middle of 2020, and it's already starting to bounce back up. The per capita income for people keeps growing. It's now about 55,000. This chart, you can see the number of small businesses. They continue to grow. We're now very close to 2.7 small businesses. And in addition to all that, this chart shows you the amount of imports and exports that come through Florida. Every year, Florida, there are about $150 billion worth of imports and exports that pass through Florida. This chart shows you the trends in venture capital and deal making here with startups. It has really exploded in 2021, as you can see here. I'm going to explain more about that in a bit. Fueled by technology, Florida, there's quite a bit of patents that are awarded in Florida throughout the state. It is one of the highest in the country. This shows the Florida visitor charts, how it took a dive in 2020. And in addition to all this, there are a lot of foreign companies here employing almost 400,000 workers, and that keeps rising as well. So why do entrepreneurs like Florida? I mean, why is it a hotspot for entrepreneurial activity? Well, there are multiple reasons. Number one is it's got an excellent location. Located in the southeast corner of the US, it has access to the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, the entire USA, Europe, Africa, close proximity to the Panama Canal. Florida has a very large and dynamic economy and access to world markets. I'll explain these more in detail in following slides. I'm just going to quickly go through the list here. Florida has a very business-friendly environment and very low corporate taxes, no personal income taxes. The workers here, there is a large, diverse pool of labor and talent, and wages here are very competitive compared to other areas in the country. Florida has an excellent infrastructure of highways, railways, and seaports and airports and global connectivity. It leads the country as one of the leading states for cutting edge innovation. It has extensive private and government support. And there are a lot of intangibles. People love the climate here, has a good quality of life. The cost of living is relatively low, has an excellent education system. And some aspects of the healthcare system are pretty good. I'm gonna have to touch on that later, but healthcare is not particularly spectacular here. Okay, so moving into more detail. The location. As you can see from these maps, Florida is a strategic gateway to the entire US, South America, Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe and Africa. It has close proximity to the Panama Canal and all these shipping lanes. These are all the world's major shipping lanes. You can see how so many of them come to the East Coast and to Florida. Here you can see Florida, how it relates to the rest of the world. Florida's location is one of the main reasons why so many Fortune 500 companies are here. 19 Fortune 500 companies make their headquarters in Florida, including AutoNation, which is the largest auto dealer in the USA, Office Depot, Hertz, Public, World Fuel Services, and Tech Data. So the workforce, we have a large dynamic economy and world market, 1.15 trillion, about 125 trillion yen, fourth largest in the US, 17th largest in the world. Florida's economy is diversified, and it's not just focused on one or two sectors. So because it is so diverse, it is able to get through economic downturns better than most states that have that focus on one or two or three economic sectors. Florida is growing and performing better than most US states, and economically, Florida is less affected by COVID than most US states due to the Florida's reluctance to do shutdowns. They have less lockdowns and shorter lockdowns. There is a cost in human lives. Florida is one of the worst hit states when it comes to number of COVID cases and loss of lives. But this is something the government apparently, they are, I know it doesn't sound good to say this, but Florida's government appears to be more willing to sacrifice lives to keep the state economy strong. COVID has had the least effect on the science and technology sectors in Florida. Unemployment, it jumped up in 2020, but right now unemployment is only about 5% compared to 5.2% for the rest of the US. So the largest overall industries, as I mentioned, was tourism being 11%. Now compare that to Hawaii, where tourism makes up 21% of Hawaii's economy. After tourism, agriculture, international trade, aerospace, aviation, life sciences, and the financial services make up the big six for Florida's industries. Florida has a very business-friendly environment. There are very competitive costs of doing business as significantly lower than a lot of other areas in the US, particularly New York and San Francisco, for example. Florida's state government is very pro-business. They enact a lot of laws and regulations favoring business, trying to attract business to the state. And one of the benefits is very low corporate taxes. Florida is ranked #1 for favorable corporate taxes. The corporate taxes, state taxes in Florida, the most you can pay is 5.5%. Florida consistently ranks among the best states for business. Florida's regulations are much more relaxed compared to other states. They're more streamlined, they're more simple, there are less regulations, they're quicker, they're less costly to go through, and there are more predictable outcomes when you try to get permits and licenses to do business in Florida. They also have excellent business support, a lot of public and private business and support programs and agencies, and 6 trade offices throughout the state. And another biggie, why entrepreneurs like Florida, is that there are no personal income taxes. There are no personal state income taxes in Florida. Some states in the US have income tax rate close to 10%. So you can imagine why a lot of people, like the idea of keeping, of not having to pay an extra 10% of their income in taxes. The fact that Florida has no personal income taxes, for state income taxes, is very good for companies like subchapter S corporations and LLCs. These are what we call pass-through businesses, because they don't pay taxes. These corporations don't pay, these businesses, subchapter S corporations and limited liability companies, the owners pay the tax. The shareholders, the owners pay the tax, not the company. Normally, when you have a corporation, the corporation pays the tax, and any profits that are given to the shareholders are then taxable to the shareholders, meaning double taxation. Florida doesn't have that. We don't have double taxation for sub-S and limited liability companies. The labor pool here is the 3rd largest in the USA. There are 12.5 million workers. They are very culturally and linguistically diverse. A lot of different people from a lot of different countries and cultures speak a lot of different languages down here. And the workers are paid, the costs of employment are more affordable for employers compared to other places in the US. Florida's talent pipeline, the skills of the people coming into the workforce, is consistently ranked among the best in the US. There are millions of people here employed in high-tech businesses like technology, aerospace, aviation, life sciences, engineering, healthcare, higher education. Again, getting back to the labor costs, when you compare them to other top tier business locations in the US, for example, the manufacturing wages here in Florida are about 20% lower than Texas and about 35% lower than manufacturing wages in California. Another big factor is that Florida has a very low rate of unionization. There are not so many people here in Florida who are part of unions. Only 6% for Florida versus close to 11% of US people are in unions. Japan, I understand it's about 17% of the workforce being members of unions. So that's one factor that appeals to a lot of new businesses. Florida's infrastructure, global connectivity, it has a very modern transportation infrastructure, one of the best and most extensive multi-modal infrastructures in the world. Deep sea seaports, commercial airports, extensive highway system, railway system. There are 20 international commercial airports in Florida and 130 smaller public airports. We have 15 deep water seaports, $150 billion in imports and exports enter and exit through Florida each year, an extensive highway and railroad network, and one of the world's top 5 telecommunications hubs with very fast and widely available wireless internets. So we can see some on this map. These show where the deep water seaports are located and where the commercial airports are located all around Florida here. This shows the railroad network throughout Florida. Now, unlike Japan, the railroad system in Florida is not very good for passengers, for moving people. Florida's railroad network is designed for moving cargo, is designed for moving goods. Pretty much the only passenger line is this one right here. Okay, another reason why investors and entrepreneurs like Florida is because of its cutting edge innovation. Over 36,000 high-tech businesses employ over 600,000 Floridians. Florida is an industry leader in aviation and aerospace and satellite communications. You may have heard of NASA, the Kennedy Space Center, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin. Military defense contractors, Homeland Security, over 18,000 companies. This includes biometrics and cybersecurity. Clean technology or green technology like solar energy and bioplastics. Florida is definitely a hot spot for that. Fintech or financial technology, financial services and insurance. There are almost 140,000 companies in Florida doing banking and investment and insurance, including top companies like Citigroup and Ernst & Young. Florida also excels in manufacturing, such as electronic components, transportation equipment, and metal fabrication. Continuing on with Florida's cutting edge innovation, you have life sciences. They're one of the leaders in life sciences. Number two in medical device manufacturing, number 2 in pharmaceutical manufacturing, number 5 in biotech research and development. Some of the 1,500 companies here that do this include Johnson & Johnson, Bausch & Lomb, Bristol Myers Squibb, Medtronic, and these others. IT, information technology, is another place where Florida leads, particularly with photonics and optoelectronics. There are 270 companies in that industry subsector that employ 6,000 optics professionals. It also includes microelectronics, telecommunications, software, technology, research and development, etc. Am I going too fast?
A little bit, yes, especially okay. Those names. But yeah, I'm catching up. Yeah, I'm
sorry. We're already halfway through, and so I'm just okay. I'll skip some things a little bit. So another reason why entrepreneurs like Florida, why is Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem so good right now is there's a lot of private and government support. For example, access to venture capital is growing significantly in Florida. Florida, there's over $10 billion investment in research and development each year in Florida. Startup firms in Florida, they attracted nearly $3 billion in annual venture capital deals. And the past 5 years have seen a big increase in venture capitalists and angel investors coming to Florida. We'll go on to the public and private things a little bit further. Let me explain the venture capital. One of the biggest biggest venture capital hotspot right now in Florida is Miami. It's one of the biggest in the country, actually. It is venture capital for new entrepreneurs, new companies is surging right now in Miami. 7 of the 10 most active venture capital investors in the US have some presence in Miami. As you can see from this chart, 2001 alone, the first 9 months of 2001 alone saw $2.4 billion in venture capital funding, which was more than the 101.36 billion for hold on a second, which was more than what we saw for the entire 2020. In the last quarter alone, July, August, and September, Miami had $1.36 billion in 72 venture capital funding deals. You can see it on the chart here. It's just going crazy right now. So Miami alone, again, not the entire state, but Miami alone has had $6.5 billion in venture capital investment over the past 3 years, and it is growing. Who is getting this money? Well, traditionally, that money, venture capital funding, traditionally went to healthcare and biotechnology companies, but financial technology companies now have now surpassed that. This explosion of venture capital funding and activity in Miami, it follows the overall US trend. Despite COVID, venture capital funding in the US is very, very good right now. The first 9 months in 2021, total US venture capital funding was $210 billion in almost 9,000 deals. This surpasses the entire 2020 US venture capital funding of $142 billion in almost 10,000 deals. So it's just exploding right now. Private and government support. Florida, the state government of Florida is very generous in offering a variety of different incentives for new businesses to come to Florida. These include refunding of taxes, giving you a tax credit, tax exemptions, giving you a tax holiday, which basically means you don't have to pay any taxes for a certain number of years. They have extensive grants, which is basically free money, and they have low and no interest loans. During the 2018-19 fiscal year, Florida government paid almost $50 million in total incentive for new companies to come to Florida. These were almost $49.2 million into 214 projects, brought in $1.25 billion in capital investment to Florida, created over 15,000 jobs, with the average salary being rather high, $82,000. So I'm going to skip this, but these are just 2 examples of some of the more popular state incentive programs for larger investors who want to come into, larger companies who want to come into Florida. And these are all a number of different other incentive programs for people to attract new business and entrepreneurs to Florida. So as you can see, there is extensive private and government support for new business to come to Florida. They are hungry for your new business. Florida is hungry to have entrepreneurs come into the state. Some of the more intangible and other factors that are attracting entrepreneurs is education. Florida's public university system is ranked the best in the nation. They have many excellent public universities and colleges and technical schools. For example, the University of Florida system has over 56,000 students. The Florida State University system has over 45,000 students. There are dozens of these campuses located throughout Florida, and they include 6 major medical schools. There is an emphasis in Florida colleges on scientific and technical curricula, and Florida also excels, has quite a lot of business academic partnerships. You may be familiar with the Triangle area of North Carolina that has the Duke University, University of North Carolina, and North Carolina State system that promotes research and innovation. Well, Florida has one as well. It's called the High Tech Corridor, between the University of Central Florida, University of South Florida, and the University of Florida. These Florida universities, they file more patents than universities in any other states. And the University Florida system alone spent close to $1 billion on research in 2019. And as far as for launching startups or university spinoffs, Florida ranked number 4 in the country. Some other intangibles. Healthcare is a mixed bag, okay? Healthcare, Florida does not really have the best healthcare. It is slightly below average compared to the rest of the US. And that is mainly because the state government doesn't spend a whole lot on healthcare, and because there are more people in Florida who are not insured compared to the rest of the US. For example, 13% of the people in Florida are not insured versus 11% of the US population. But because Florida has a higher age population, it has a very strong focus on geriatric care, or elder care. And because it is not such an excellent overall system, there are many opportunities for improvement. There is a big push to bring in companies to help improve the healthcare system in Florida. Some of you may already know that the Florida climate is, we're called the Sunshine State. We have hot summers and very nice, mild, warm winters, falls, and spring. It is sunny most of the year, and this only adds to the quality of life that a lot of people find attractive about Florida. The diversity of the culture, the food, the arts and entertainment, the water sports and activities, all of these things are very appealing for those who want to move. And the cost of living. While the overall general cost of living is similar to the rest of the US, maybe a little bit below average, when you compare Florida to the cost of living in high-tech, high-tax states such as California, New York, Washington, and New Jersey, Florida is much lower, has a much lower cost of living and much more affordable land and housing for businesses and private homes. So I don't want to sound like a commercial for Florida. I do need to tell you some of the downsides, some of the negative things about doing business in Florida. And one of those on a more business focus is when it comes to conventional financing, which means traditional bank financing, Florida does not perform as well as the rest of the nation. Only 35% of new businesses receive the full amount they applied for, compared to 47% in the US. And 31% of new businesses in Florida did not receive any funding from conventional lenders, compared to 22% for the rest of the US. One other downside for Florida is it is very hot. It is hot and humid. It is mushiatsui like most of southern and western Japan. Long, hot, humid summers. There are no 4 seasons. And because of the hotter temperatures, your utility and particularly your air conditioning costs are going to be a higher cost of doing business here. Higher cost of doing business, higher cost of living. Florida is also known for hurricanes, storms, tornadoes, sinkholes. We normally can expect 1 or 2 hurricanes to hit Florida each year. This year, we've been lucky. We haven't been hit by any. Most of those hurricanes will hit the East Coast, the Atlantic coast of Florida, harder than the West Coast. Hurricanes normally travel from the southeast to the northwest, and by the time they get to the west coast of Florida, they have weakened. We do have a lot of thunderstorms during the summer with quite a bit of lightning. We are the lightning capital of the world, and because of these storms and all the lightning, we do have some problems with temporary, brief utility interruptions, interruption of electricity and telecommunications. So any new company that needs constant access to electricities and communication will need to invest in backup systems. Global warming and rising sea levels are a long-term concern for some Floridians. Florida is very flat. It's only, a lot of the state is only a few meters above sea level. Some people predict that much of Florida's coastline and low-lying areas may be underwater in about 100 years or so. Again, the healthcare is not spectacular. Florida also has a seasonal economy that will affect some businesses. By seasonal economy, I mean when the tourist comes, those businesses will excel. When the tourists are not here, those industries will slow down. So obviously tourism is a seasonal economy. Agriculture, of course, is a seasonal economy. So if you're investing in a new business that has anything to do with tourism or agriculture, or that may be affected by a seasonal economy, you need to keep that in mind. Again, the geography of Florida is very flat. There are no mountains, there are no valleys, and some people get tired of the flatness after a while. Like a lot of other areas, there are overcrowded urban areas. There's urban sprawl. There's increasing traffic in a lot of Florida cities. And when it comes to crime rate, the state as a whole is not too bad. It's slightly below average. But some of the biggest cities, particularly Miami, have above average crime rates. So those are the negatives. So how do you start a new business in Florida? Well, very quickly, you start it by, you got to put together a really good business plan. That business plan is essential for attracting investors and partners, venture capital sort. Next, you pick the location. You have to choose not just the location, but the business structure. In America, we have corporations, we have partnerships, we have limited liability companies and sole proprietorships. They all have advantages and disadvantages, and you should pick the one that's best for your particular business. Again, this is a checklist, which I'll be happy to discuss with anyone later on if they'd like to go through this. We'll keep moving on here. Okay, so what about Florida and Japan? There is a significant Japanese presence in Florida. I put this map up. It's a little funny. I found it online. And what do people in Japan think of Florida and other US states? Well, you ask them about Florida and most Japanese will say Disney World. They say the same thing about California. No, there's a lot more to Florida than Disney World. Here you can see some of the Japanese companies in Florida. There's almost 200 Japanese companies. They include like Mitsubishi, Mitsui O.S.K. lines, and Mitsukoshi, Hitachi, a bunch of others here you can see, Canon. And they, I think about 195 of them, and they're, as you can see, they're located all here. Most of the Japanese companies are located in the Miami area, the southeastern portion of the state. There is a Japan consulate in Miami, which has a business section that can help entrepreneurs from Japan if they want, or companies that want to, Japanese companies that want to expand to Florida. Florida also has a business office in Tokyo. Florida Enterprise is the Florida State Office for Business Development. They have an office in Tokyo. Florida has over 300,000, Japanese tourists visit annually. There are about 15,000 Florida residents who have some Japanese ancestry, not a whole lot. Japan is the second largest foreign investor in Florida. Germany is first. Japan has invested about $8 billion in Florida. Germany has maybe a 5% more than that. Japan is Florida's second source of import, accounting for about $4 billion. And Japan is Florida's fifth largest trading partner. Exports and imports totaled about 7.7 billion last year. The top imports from Japan to Florida are vehicles and machinery. The top exports from Florida to Japan are citrus fruit and fertilizer. Again, there are almost 200 Japanese companies here. They employ 26,000 Floridians. And there are hundreds of Florida companies in Japan, including Royal Caribbean, Office Depot, Universal Studios, Tropicana, and Burger King. I'd like to talk to you about this gentleman here. This gentleman, Harry Wayne Huizenga. Harry Wayne Huizenga is probably the most well-known and successful of all Florida entrepreneurs. He is a billionaire serial entrepreneur. He built 3 Fortune 500 companies. The first was Waste Management. The second was Blockbuster Video. The third was AutoNation. AutoNation is the largest automotive dealer in the USA. You may recognize Blockbuster Video. As you know, Blockbuster Video no longer exists because the internet wiped out its business. But Mr. Huizenga saw that coming. In 1994, Mr. Huizenga sold Blockbuster Video to Viacom for $8 billion. And a couple of years later, Blockbuster Video wasn't really worth a whole lot. Mr. Huizenga, he owns 3 professional sports teams, including the Miami Dolphins football team, Miami Marlins baseball, and the Florida Panthers hockey team. Yes, we have ice hockey teams down here in Florida. He also chaired 4 New York Stock Exchange companies, AutoNation, Extended Stay America, which is a hotel chain, Republic Services, which is financial, and Boca's Resorts, which is a very prestigious upscale resort and real estate down in one of the best areas of Florida. Mr. Huizenga is often quoted for some of the advice that he gives to other entrepreneurs. One of which was told to him by his father, and that is, you can't make any real money by working for someone else. If you want to be successful, be your own boss, work for yourself. He advises entrepreneurs, get a good education and then work with good people. People are what determine your success in the future. You surround yourself with good people and you won't fail. So the keys to his success are think big, have big dreams, work hard, be the boss. Mr. Huizenga was always the boss of his companies. He was always the boss wherever he worked. Sell real stuff. By that, I mean he sell products and services you can actually see and hold in your hand. Mr. Huizenga was really not into this, cell phone apps and internet technology that goes way above the head of a lot of people because you can't really hold it in your hand. Know your strengths and your weekends. Embrace your brand. Always be promoting your brand. Get out on top, just like he did with Blockbuster Video. And very important to him and to any entrepreneur is to spend time with your family. Entrepreneurism is very high stress. You need to balance out your life by relaxing with your family, getting good exercise. Don't just be all business. Here are a list of, despite the COVID pandemic, these are lists of the top 10 fastest growing companies in Florida last year in 2020 and this year so far in 2021. You can see where the focus of these companies are. They're on health, real estate, software, business products, consumer product, energy, media, manufacturing. All right? So despite how hard COVID has hit Florida and everyone else the past 2 years, there are opportunities for growth. There are success stories, quite a few still coming out. If you'd like to know more about entrepreneurism and starting a business in Florida, I've listed here a bunch of resources for you, including a list of venture capital firms. I'm happy to make these slides available to anyone who wants them. Just let me know, and I'll be happy to email them to you. These are also some links and reference materials, and I relied on this for a lot of the information in my slides. And this is the contact. If you have any questions you'd like to email me, or if you need any help in Florida, I'm here. That's my contact information. Technology Partnership of Nagoya University. I want to thank them and Koyama-san for inviting me to make this presentation to you today. And so that about wraps up the slideshow presentation. We're going to move to the panel discussion with myself and Rahul Shukla, who has joined us. And before I do that, before I introduce Mr. Shukla and start the panel discussion, I'd like to invite the audience. Do you have any questions about this slideshow presentation I gave you over the past hour?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes. Who's asking the question?
This is Kaz.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that most people think Florida as a destination for the vacation.
Yes.
But your presentation changed our impression from for the vacation to the business place.
Right.
It's a very good chance to know about Florida. And my question is, can you go back to the page number 11?
I don't have, okay. So 11, let's see. Okay.
Oh.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7. This one?
Yes. So in the right top graph shows there is a huge increase at 2000. Do you know what happened this year, or before this year and after this year?
I don't know. I really can't explain why certain sectors are booming during COVID. Particularly the venture capital, it seems counterintuitive to think that, oh, a pandemic is a good time to start a business, right? Well, there is actually quite a few new businesses starting during the middle of the pandemic. And not only are these new businesses starting, but venture capitals are very hungry to do business with them. And I can't explain it. It is as surprising to me as it is to you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it may be, I think part of the reason is because Miami itself, the city government, the county government down in Miami, has been working very hard the past 2 years to bring a lot of Wall Street down into the Miami area. And they're succeeding in bringing a lot of Wall Street companies down to Miami. And with those Wall Street companies, you're going to get the venture capitalists following them. Are there any other questions?
But Koida-san, do you have any? Kito-san.
紀藤先生、手が上がってます。
どうもありがとうございました。 私もフロリダは
Thank you. So I thought that Florida is a tourist destination, so this was unexpected. I've never been to Florida, so I really would like to visit there for business or for vacation. So my question, you do have a really good ecosystem, but among this, so the role of the universities, can you elaborate on the role that the universities play in this ecosystem? So I think it was on your 22nd slide. So do you have a students launching the business or launching the business on the research topic? So do these universities have like a program that facilitates such the business launch of the students?
Yes, there are most of the large universities in Florida and a lot of the smaller ones. They do offer degrees in entrepreneurism. They have multiple courses in entrepreneurism and starting a new business. There are most of the large schools have offices set aside to help students with their new startups, to promote entrepreneurism from within the university. I think kind of like Nagoya University has its own technology transfer office. All of the big universities in Florida have the same, but in addition to that technology transfer office, they have specific offices. They have offices that specifically help students go out and become entrepreneurs. They put a big emphasis on research, and they're very aggressive in filing patents. So yes, they do very actively promote entrepreneurism with their students. Did that answer your question?
Thank you. So I'm sure you don't have the figures right now, but so among the new startups, what portion is from the universities or by the students having a degree from the university launching the business, or how much of the startups is based on like research in the Florida University? Do you have like a ballpark proportion?
Unfortunately, I don't have specific figures about how many students are studying entrepreneurism. The total number of university spin-offs, I do recall that there was one, I do recall reading that one University of Florida campus, I forget which one, but one of the campuses, they had 15 startups in 2019. One campus alone, 15 startups. And there are dozens of these campuses throughout the Florida system.
Thank
you. I think I got the size of it. And how about Koida-san?
Hi, good morning and good evening, everyone. That's a nice presentation. I'm gonna speak Japanese. So when you look at the state of Florida, and I understand that the Florida provides lots of incentives. On the other hand, so the support from the private sector, aside from venture capitals, what are the support from the private sector available besides the venture capital that you explained?
There are a number of private foundations, nonprofit organizations that provide grants and loans for certain types of businesses. For example, if you want to investigate a new cancer drug, or for example, there are organizations, national and state, that will help you do that research and get started here in the U.S. For example, the American Cancer Society. there are a lot of similar private foundations in Florida that will support certain investments in their particular area of charity. There are also organizations like the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce here, every major city has one, almost every county has a Chamber of Commerce, and they are very active in helping new businesses and finding lending. So the support is not just limited to money. They provide coaching. These private foundations, these organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, they will meet with these young entrepreneurs, and they will provide experienced mentoring programs and coaching with experienced, successful entrepreneurs. They have classes and other resource materials to help the new business succeed. So it's not just money being given to them. It's a lot of support, a lot of helping them. There are networking forums that they provide where these young, inexperienced entrepreneurs can meet other more experienced entrepreneurs and get some advice and help from them.
Understood. Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Tamiya-san, please.
Okay.
There are.
そうか。先ほど
Earlier, you mentioned that Florida is attracting entrepreneurs with a lower tax and a simple administrative process. So these are implemented to invite entrepreneurs. But because there's the universities that are there, so what was the reason for the Florida? What was the starting point of Florida to become such an entrepreneur-friendly state? Did it start from like university programs, first attracting or facilitating the entrepreneurship?
That's a very good question, and very interesting, because you have to look back at the history of Florida. 40, 50 years ago, Florida was really not very developed. It was kind of a backwater, Inaka kind of place, okay? It wasn't, and the economy of Florida back then was very much more focused on tourism and agriculture. So when the economy went down and affected tourism or agriculture, Florida suffered a lot more than other states. So over time, the Florida government realized that this was a weakness and that they had to diversify the economy. And not only did they want to diversify the economy, but there was a deliberate push by the Florida state government starting about 20 years ago or so to bring more high technology businesses to the state, to bring higher paying jobs. They wanted more families to move to Florida, and they wanted more these high tech businesses that were not so affected by reductions in tourism or whatnot. So they made a deliberate effort to attract these companies, and one way to attract them is to tell them, hey, you don't have to pay any taxes, or your taxes here are a lot lower than other states. And also to make it much easier, quicker, and cheaper than other states for them to set up a business. So there was a deliberate effort by the state government, a very successful effort by the state government to attract these new businesses, to diversify the economy and make it less dependent on tourism and agriculture. And they built, since education is so important to new families moving down here, they built a university system and they invested a ton of money into that system, and it is one of the best ones in the country. So they did make a long-term effort to improve, to get where they are today. But yes, 30, 40, 50 years ago, Florida was nowhere where it is nowadays.
Thank you.
Haruto-san, do you have any or not?
すみません、途中で参加してますので。
Yeah, I just joined halfway through, so I'm still catching up the understanding. I will have a look at the slides and yeah, but for so far, I'm just trying to catch up. So no questions so far.
Thank you. Do you have any, Hori-san?
はい、ありがとうございます。
Yes, thank you. Yeah, following up to well, actually, Kito-san preempted my questions. So, but yeah, so university attracted startups, and I wonder the tuition level is rather expensive
Actually,
in other states. How about Florida?
actually, public tuition in Florida is below average. I don't know the numbers, but when I was going through here, I read something to the effect that compared to the rest of the USA, the tuition, resident tuition to attend a public university in Florida is below the US average. This is for residents of Florida, not non-residents. Most public universities in the US, they have very different tuition prices for residents versus non-residents. Sometimes the non-resident tuition can be 3, 4, 5 times more expensive. But for residents of Florida, the tuition to attend the University of Florida system or the Florida State University system is below the US average.
So you can say, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I have daughters who went to the University of North Carolina system. Okay, and I believe they charged $8,000 a semester, and that was about average, I believe, right?
Thank you.
Okay.
So you can say like the Florida is the best, one of the best places for students with low cost education, right?
Yes, it is actually ranked #1. The public university system in Florida is actually ranked by U.S. News and World. U.S. News and World Report magazine is #1 in the country.
Right, thank you.
U.S. News and World Report, every year they do a ranking of U.S. colleges, and they consistently rank Florida as one of the best public university systems in the country.
I feel like university tuitions are increasing every year recently.
They are.
But still Florida universities are still like a low level. Okay.
It is still affordable.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. How about Avishal-san? Do you have any?
Hi. There is
yes.
So I had your presentation comparing to our area, Mie and Tube area. So we also have big company, university, and there are lots of agriculture area, sightseeing. But how can I say, we cannot connecting these area with technology.
I don't understand the question. Could you repeat it, please?
So, how do we make business?
You're talking about real estate business?
Not real estate. So we have lots of resources, but we cannot. We cannot make we cannot make business, or we cannot challenge it.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question. I'm sorry.
I think she's trying to say that, so the agriculture area, sightseeing areas, the industrialized areas, but not connected. So it's hard to put in Japanese, but we haven't been able to make the best of what we already have. So,
Okay.
so just like your state, we do have richness of resources, like the university, agriculture, sightseeing area, but haven't been integrated in the form of resources, and we haven't been able to package them to attract the others. And so, how is any secret recipe for the success?
You know, a lot of the credit goes to the state government, and Florida gets a lot of criticism because Florida, the current state government is Republican, and there's a lot of extensive disagreement about politics going on in the US. But the Republican government in Florida has been very pro-business for many years, to the point that a lot of people think maybe it's too friendly to business, okay? But not only are they friendly to business, they've really been successful integrating government, education, and new business, putting that all together. And so I will have to give the state government a lot of credit for putting together a really good package. It took them decades to do this. But this is an example of government, industry, academia cooperation on a wide statewide, on a broad statewide scale. And it works for Florida.
I understand. Thank you.
Getting back to the previous question, I did a quick Google, all right, the tuition. The public universities in Florida, in-state residential tuition is about $6,400 a year. Non-resident tuition is about $28,000 a year. So you can see a big difference between resident and non-resident. That $6,400 in-state tuition for Florida is about 20% less than what I paid for my daughters to go to public universities in North Carolina, for example.
Kawano-san, do you have any other questions? Kawano-san, no?
All right. I'd like to, if anybody has any questions you want to ask me privately, this is my email address. If you'd like me to send you these slides, I can do so. Or you can ask Nagoya Koyama-san at Technology Partnership of Nagoya University. He'd be happy to send them to you as well. Unless there's no further questions about this presentation, I'd like to move forward to the panel discussion. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. So before we get into that, I want to introduce y'all to Mr. Rahul Shukla. Rahul Shukla is a very successful entrepreneur and industrialist. He's a very creative engineer, He's a writer. He's written several books, and he's a very good, experienced public speaker. He received his MS in industrial engineering from Rutgers University in New Jersey, a very good school. In 1973, while he was studying for his PhD, Rahul took on a factory job at a company called SS White Technologies. SS White Technologies was a company founded in 1844 by a pioneering dentist named Dr. Samuel Stockton White. Rahul worked his way up through the company from quality inspector to factory worker to quality inspector, quality control inspector to director of research. And then serendipity happened. Through a unique twist of fate, Rahul was able to buy the company. He was able to buy the company in 1988. Rahul invested everything he had and put all his heart and soul into the company. And under his creative leadership, the company was transformed from a dental equipment, dental supply manufacturing company into a more broad engineering company. Today, SS White is a world leader in flexible shaft technologies. Okay, this is a technology used by 98% of all airplanes. 98% of all airplanes in the world use at least one flexible shaft product that is made by SS White. Mr. Shukla, later on, he launched a second company called Shukla Medical, which is a world leader in extraction tools for orthopedic, orthodontic or orthopedic, I forget, I'm sorry, implants. After many years in New Jersey, this company was founded in New York and moved to New Jersey, spent many years in New Jersey. 3 years ago, in 2018, I believe, Rahul moved the company to Florida. And it was not an easy process for him. He had to sell the idea to his employees. He's very close to his employees. And but in 2018, they made the move. And right now, his companies, they employ around 600 people around the world. His headquarters are right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and he has subsidiaries in the United Kingdom and India. I would like, please, everyone, please welcome Mr. Rahul Shukla. Rahul, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome, and thank you for joining us, Rahul.
Yes, it is my pleasure.
Rahul, I'd like you to start off. I'd like you to tell everyone about your company. What was your experience? Tell us about SS White, and why did you choose to relocate to Florida? What were some of the challenges and the successes that you experienced with that move? What did you learn from that move?
First, I will give a short answer. What did I learn from this move? And what I learned, Foster, was that it was easier than I thought. That when you decide to make a big change about moving a company from one state to another state, that you can create 1,000 reasons why you should not do it. And you can create all sorts of fear. Somebody will tell you about the hurricanes in Florida and so many other things. It turned out when I finally moved in 2018 that it was a lot easier. Once I started the process, it completed by itself. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And once I took the first step, the most important thing was to decide to do it. Foster, you said I had a difficult job of selling the idea to our employees. That is true. But before that, I had to sell the idea to my lovely wife.
That was harder, huh?
and it was very skillful negotiating. And it took me several months. And Meena, my wife, She was very supportive, but she was not sure whether she wanted to move. But out of her love for me, she decided to move. And now she gives me a thank you hug every day.
Oh, good man, good man. Good for you.
So my company is a small to medium sized company, but we have a lot of equipment. We use punch presses and CNC machines, lathe, milling machines, winding machines. So for a small company, it was a big move. We moved 40 truckloads of machinery from New Jersey to here. And to uninstall all those machines, uninstall the electrical line, the pneumatic line, the water line, and then come here and start connecting them. Some of the machines were 40 feet long. So it was a little frightening, but I have always known that once you decide to do it, everything will work out. And so, if somebody asked me what was the downside of moving from New Jersey to Florida, and I can tell you that so far I have not found a single downside.
Really? Okay.
If any of your listeners were thinking about moving anywhere in the USA, I would say that Florida is the best place to move. What were some of my reasons? The first one was quality of life. Because if you only put emphasis on work and do not put emphasis on living a good, happy life, then I would think that the life can never be happy. I have a slogan in my company. I have put a big poster, and it says that work will wait while you show your child the rainbow, but rainbow will not wait while you work. So coming to Florida, there is water everywhere, especially in Tampa and Clearwater. The beaches with sugar sand, and it is so beautiful and so gorgeous. On top of that, the cost of living is lower than almost anywhere in the United States. We were in New Jersey, and coming from New Jersey to here, the cost of living was 25% less.
Wow, that's
so
big.
If you made $50,000 in New Jersey and you moved here, it would become $63,000 for you, even though it is still the same money. The other thing about Tampa, St. Petersburg area is that the average age of the population is lower than rest of Florida.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Therefore, I had no difficulty in hiring people. We took big advertisements in newspaper, half-page advertisements, and said that SS White is hiring. And we did it over weekend. And every day we had 200 people come to apply. Now, this was in 2018. Right now, there is a shortage of workers because of Corona. But that shortage is everywhere. I have a plant in India and I cannot find workers in India. I can't believe that I am from India. And if somebody told me that you advertise for factory workers in India and you will have difficulty, I would have never believed it. But right now, Corona has done that. I do not know how it is in Japan, but here there is somewhat shortage, yet we are doing okay. So the availability of workforce. The other thing was international airport. I sell to all the aerospace companies in United States, in Europe, and I wanted to make sure that there was a good international airport nearby. So you put it all together. The other important thing was taxes. The income tax in New Jersey was, the state income tax was 9%. Now this is on top of 40% federal income tax.
Wow.
Now 9%, most companies do not have a margin of 9%. Yeah. So by moving from New Jersey to Florida, I increased my income by 10%, 9%. Add to that cheaper labor cost. Even the energy cost went down for me, even though air conditioning is expensive, but I don't have to heat the plant.
Yeah.
By the way, Foster, you said that one of the negatives about this area is heat in the summer. However, I want all of you to Google the words Tampa and 100-degree temperature. Do you know that this area has never reached ever 38-degree centigrade temperature?
I didn't know.
The highest temperature we have ever seen is 37 degrees centigrade. Where I lived in New Jersey, it went over 38 many times.
Oh. Okay.
So it is an interesting fact. The reason why it seems hotter here is because there is more sunshine. We have many more days. In New Jersey, we had 150 days of sunshine. In Florida, it is 210. So the quality of life is absolutely stunning. The availability of workers. The last thing I want to say is I found the people very welcoming. The government people, the university people, when they knew that I was thinking about moving my plant, and we are a small company. My plant is 90,000 square feet. We have 130 people in Florida. Yet, all the government officers, all the local, the mayor of Seminole, they all were trying to convince me to move to Florida. And what it meant was I felt welcomed. I felt that I will enjoy living in this new place. So after living in New Jersey for 47 years, we moved to Florida.
Good, good. You had mentioned that when we met in your office, you mentioned that one of the quality of life things that you enjoy is you take a jog on the beach every morning, right?
Yes.
You jog on the beach every morning.
Yes,
before you go to the office.
Yes, and when about 30 years ago, my colleague in New Jersey, his brother-in-law moved to Florida from New Jersey. And the brother-in-law called my friend Mike, and he said, I go jogging on the beach every day. And he said, I feel so guilty. because you are not supposed to have this much good time while you are working. That work is supposed to be boring. Instead, so I go, I live, my backyard is water and the ocean is only 2 minutes. And I go there and I just can't believe that while I'm working, I am enjoying the life so much.
That's interesting. When we met, you also mentioned on a more business note, you also mentioned some of the financial things that changed when you came down here. For example, your bottom line, your profit tripled after you came down here, right?
Yes.
I won't say the numbers, you're a private company, but basically compared to New Jersey, within only 2 or 3 years of moving here, your profit tripled.
Right. Now, the reason is interesting. When we moved, or when I decided that we want to move, many employees did not want to come. As a matter of fact, I tried very hard. We gave them financial incentive. I gave them philosophical lectures on why you should do things that you are not quite ready for. That in life, you should always do things that you are not 100% ready. You have to take little bit of risk, calculated risk. And I tried very hard to have all the people move with us. Only 30 people out of 130 came with us.
Okay.
Which was a good thing, because those 30 people were loyal to my company. So now the move became a wonderful filter. That people who did not enjoy that much working for SS White decided not to come. I hired a lot of new people here. They were thankful and excited. So overall morale of the people went up. And that was one of the additional reasons why our profit went up.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I thank you for telling us about your own personal experience. Before we move on, is there anyone in the audience who has any questions for Mr. Shukla about his experience coming to Florida, his company, his experiences down here? Okay. No questions for Mr. Shukla? Okay, then we'll move on. We'll discuss some more general topics. And Mr. Shukla will remain with us and he'll help us discuss these additional topics. As you know, the world right now, since last year, we've been dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, and it has affected everyone. It's affected all economies. It affects millions and millions of people. How has that affected the economy down here in Florida and entrepreneurism? Well, from my own observation, I believe the Florida economy was hurt by COVID, but to a lesser extent than other US states. And that is because Florida's government has been very reluctant to order business lockdowns, and when they do order them, they usually order them later than elsewhere, and they lift these lockdowns sooner than elsewhere. And the government has gotten a lot of criticism for that, because with less lockdowns, the virus has spread more. COVID has hit Florida quite hard. We are above average in the number of COVID cases and COVID deaths. But that is the price, it seems, that the government was willing to pay in order to keep the economy going. Their thinking was the economy, a bad economy is not good for anyone. It's going to make health and problems, suicides and all that. So they gave the priority to the economy. Is that the same observation that you see, Rahul?
I agree with you that Florida government is very business friendly. I think that any of you listeners are considering moving to any state in the USA, probably Florida will be one of the most business friendly government.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, during this corona crisis, my factory was not closed down for a single day.
Good.
So it was advantageous. We did require many precautions. For instance, as soon as the vaccine became available, we required that if you are not vaccinated, we will terminate your job.
Okay.
So
did you do that on your own, or did you do that on your own, or after it was ordered by the government?
No, we were a few steps ahead. I did it on my own.
All right.
First we did, we pay insurance 100% medical and dental for all employees. So the first thing we did was, if you are not vaccinated, we will only pay 70% of your premium and you have to pay 30%. That moved people. And then about 3 months ago, we said, if you're not vaccinated, you cannot work here.
And how was the employee response to that?
The 3 people out of 120 found a job elsewhere.
Okay.
But
did you have a similar experience requiring masks? When I visited your office, your office was very strict about wearing masks.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any similar problems with employees about wearing the mask?
No. And employees knew that we did it because of our deep concern. So as soon as pandemic began, we changed all our toilet and faucet and everything became touch-free. We also gave $3 per hour raise to every employee during pandemic.
Wow.
So employees knew that we really deeply cared for their well-being.
Okay. I lived in Japan, Rahul, for almost 10 years. And one thing I saw in Japan is Japanese people are much more likely to wear the mask. When I was there, if anybody had a cold, or if it was cold or flu season, even if you weren't sick, people would wear the mask because they didn't want to catch it from other people. But it was also a courtesy thing. Japanese culture is different. They seem to think more about the group, about their fellow citizens, whereas in America, we tend to focus more on ourselves, or the individuals. And so that was one thing that impressed me with Japan. And maybe members in my Japanese audience, you can confirm whether or not. I think that is a big reason why Japan did not suffer as much from COVID as the United States did. Considering the number of COVID cases and number of deaths, Japan is far, far lower than the US. And I think it's mainly because Japanese are more likely to listen to the government, listen to the scientists, wear the masks. Is that correct? I'm asking the audience. Is my thinking about Japan correct?
Does anybody want to comment? Kawano-san.
COVID-19 に対する、日本
So
の
for this Japanese response to COVID-19, yes, maybe your observation is right. Yes, we are following what we are instructed to do, but when you look at the US or Europe, the distance between the people are not as close as the US or Europe, where people would hug each other. We don't do that in Japan. So
do you have, do companies in Japan, do you have vaccine mandates and mask mandates? for your employees? I see Eriko-san is wearing a mask. Are there people nearby you, Eriko-san?
Yeah, I'm wearing mask because I'm in the room. There is other people, so I'm wearing mask. But mask is maybe mandate, but vaccination is not mandate. So it depends on personal. I think so. Maybe.
So let me ask you a question. The trains in the subway during rush hour in Japan are very, very crowded. Are most people wearing masks on the trains these days?
Yeah, in the train, almost all people wearing masks.
And again, this is a question for everyone in my Japanese audience. How has COVID affected entrepreneurism in Nagoya or the Chubu region? Has there been a reduction in entrepreneurism in Nagoya and Chubu because of COVID?
Awano-san. No?
No, okay.
How, Kawano-san, yes?
Yes, 大学発スタートアップに
Yes, for the funding for these startups in the universities around the Nagoya University, the amount, yes, we have information, the amount of funding has decreased significantly, and also because the investment has decreased. And for the IT startups, it has become, the Corona-19 has become a tailwind for IT startups, but for the inbound startups providing services to consumers, they are facing a difficulty, and manufacturing too, they are facing a difficulties during the COVID-19.
Is entrepreneur is it starting to improve in Japan now? You know, I mean, I'm trying to compare with Florida. You know, as I mentioned, in Florida, COVID did not really affect entrepreneurism in Florida. In fact, on the venture capital side of things, it seems to be doing better than ever. And so I'm just wondering if, you know, what the situation is in Japan compared to Florida, and if there was a reduction in entrepreneurism in Japan, is it getting better now? Is entrepreneurism in Nagoya and Chubu, is it starting to pick up again?
So we do think beginning to see signs of recovery right now. What about you, Kito, Mr. Kito? What do you think?
Well, so hard to say. It's still premature to say. Well, you know, the number of patients may go up towards the winter. So still a long way or quite bleak perspective or outlook.
Okay.
So, and when once the government starts promoting the tourism with incentives, then the number of patients may rise, but not sure what kind of package the government will come up. But yeah, let's wait and see.
The Chubu region of Japan is well known for as one of the manufacturing centers of Japan. Chubu region makes a much higher percentage of manufactured goods in Japan than other regions. Has manufacturing in the Chubu region, has that been steady or has it decreased during COVID?
I think it's decreased.
how has the Chubu region, how has manufacturing, industrial manufacturing, cars, ships, telecommunication, manufacturing of goods, is it still strong in the Chubu region? The Chubu region is well known to be one of the industrial powerhouses of Japan. Is that still going strong during COVID?
紀藤先生です。
どうですかね、川野先生。やっぱりまあ、
Right. What not doing well, very well, particularly the car manufacturers. Well, so they had to cut down the production capacity due to the parts and component shortage, especially from Southeast Asia. So,
All right.
yeah, the Chubu region is very much reliant on auto manufacturing. So yeah, the big impact from that. Yeah, big dip last year, but the beginning of this year was doing quite well. But due to, well, towards the second half, particularly the shortage of the parts and components, with especially driven by the shortage of semiconductors.
So today I've given you a presentation of entrepreneurism in Florida, and I listed a number of different factors to explain why entrepreneurism in Florida is so active right now. And I'm just wondering, how do all of those factors, how do they compare to Japan? For example, is the government in Nagoya or Chubu, does it offer similar incentives to create new business in Nagoya or Chubu?
そうですね。やはり、今、よく言われるのは、そういった。
Yes, particularly the major car manufacturers are located here. So as suppliers. So yeah, they have a lot of exposure to those players. That is one of the benefits. So those startups who are starting the business in the car making area. So a lot of them coming in, and also yeah, the material manufacturers for automobiles. So I'm not sure if we identify it as the strengths and build upon, or but the life science is not the strongest in Chubu. So which way would be the way? The building upon the existing strengths versus diversification. So at the university level, so hard to decide which way, one way or the other. But going forward, in the bigger context of Chubu ecosystem, the industry players are amongst the stakeholders. So together with the local municipalities and governments, we should find a way.
Thank you. Well, I have personal experience working with Nagoya University, with a technology partnership of Nagoya University and Koyama-san and Okada-san in North Carolina. And Nagoya University is one of the few Japanese universities who have opened an office here in the US, partly to promote their research and technology to US companies and to promote entrepreneurism between Japan and North Carolina. And I don't really see American universities doing that a lot. So that's a plus on the Japanese side, and Nagoya University is very active in that area, which leads me to my next question to all you members in the audience. Do you have any experience? Do any members in the audience have any experience with entrepreneurism in the USA or outside of Japan?
What do you mean,
do any members of the audience, been a part of any startup companies or new companies that expanded outside of Japan? Has anyone there participated in a university spin-off or a startup company in Japan?
Anybody?
All right. Rahul, do you have any questions for the audience, or does the audience have any questions for Mr. Shukla or myself?
No, I don't have any questions.
Well, Rahul, I want to thank you for joining us today. I find the story about your company and why you came down here to Florida is very interesting, and I very much enjoyed meeting you, and I think the members here really appreciated the personal story you told about moving to Florida. So everyone, I want to thank Mr. Shukla for being here.
If there is any information or help that I can give to anyone in your audience, they can contact you, and you can share my email address with
I will do that. Okay.
And I thank you, and I enjoyed this symposium very much, and I learned quite a few new things. Thank you for making me part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I want to thank everyone else for listening in today and for asking very good questions. I appreciate that. And again, I want to thank Nagoya University and the technology partnership of Nagoya University, Koyama-san and Okada-san, for inviting me to speak today. And it has been a pleasure. And you have been a wonderful audience. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, here it's nighttime, so I'm going to say oyasumi nasai, and in Japan it's morning, right? Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody, and thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.